As I'm sure most of you know by this point, I went to YCS Atlanta this past weekend. I took frogs, which were surprisingly like the least amount of things that people voted for on my sort of community tab post, where I asked you guys what deck I wanted to play. I didn't come to this decision very easily. I do think, despite my poor record in the main event, that the deck itself is very good. It did exactly what I wanted it to do. However, I just didn't play the hands optimally. Pretty much every single game I lost. I know I keep saying this like every weekend, but I think it's fine. It just shows that I'm being bad, not the deck. But pretty much every single game that I lost was completely within my control once I went back and sort of broke down each sequence. And hopefully this means that when I play this deck, or a similar version of this deck, this coming weekend at the Garden City Regional, that I won't suck as hard. But yeah, this deck turned out really good. It did pretty much open fine every single game, which is kind of why I played it. I did like 5 hours worth of test hands with FAs, Shaddoll Dinosaurs, and Frogs. And even though the Frog variant that I had at that time wasn't as optimized or as streamlined as this version, it still pretty much always opened more playable hands than both of those other two decks combined. Now I will say, I did want to take FAs because they open a lot of really unfair boards. I didn't want to take Dinosaurs because I felt that they were a less consistent Frogs and they didn't make as ridiculous of boards as FAs. They were sort of like the middle ground, but like the worst of both worlds. So I took Frogs, and like I said, I think the deck itself was good. I spent a lot of time on it. I think I'm still good at deck building, but playing the game gets harder and harder as I get more into YouTube. You might think that talking about Yu-Gi-Oh all the time makes me better at the game, but a lot of times that I would have spent playtesting, I'm actually just spending making videos, which puts me in a weird spot. I know a lot of other YouTubers have talked about that, so I won't waste your time too much by saying that. Anyway, let's get in the deck profile. We have 3 copies of Swap Frog, and someone always points out that this poor Swap Frog, he has his corner bent. There's nothing I can do about that. That's just how he was born. So we do play the 3 swap, though. If you open this, you'll probably win, which is, I know it sounds like kind of like cocky or whatever, but really, if you open Swap Frog, this deck pretty much is unbeatable, which sounds crazy because it's not that good a card, but it's pretty good. 3 Dupe Frog. That's the only frog monsters. 2 Rodent Totem, so just like your standard 8-card frog engine. I always mention Flip Flop Frog. It is like the best 7th frog card. It's not quite good enough to be in the deck, though. Although I wouldn't call you crazy if you played it, because a lot of times you really do want that 7th frog, either to summon from the deck or to search with Dupe, because you banished all your swaps. But in general, like, there's just no good frogs other than Dupe and Swap. So we're just stuck playing those 6. This was sort of like something I wasn't... So I know I posted a Traptrix Frog deck profile, and I did end up playing 2 Traptrix Vermilio. I will say that when I was doing those test hands, though, I wasn't playing this card, and I wasn't even completely convinced of this card until about halfway through Saturday, when I realized it was ridiculous every time I drew it. The reason this card is so good is because the Frog deck really struggles with their turn 1 opening. Once they get to like turn 2 or turn 3, they're good because they have a lot of different like advantages. Like they have like the Paleo summoning themselves from the graveyard. They have the Rodent Totem summoning from themselves from the graveyard. They have all these cards activating. But that turn 1 is so critical for setting up a good board with lots of solid trap cards. And what I kept finding was that a lot of times my hand is just like, when you didn't open a Swap Frog, you just like wanted something that you could summon and that could like kill your opponent. And the other thing I like thought of was either like Great Slime. That card's a little more aggressive than Traptrix Vermilio. Thunder King was also an option, although from playing Mistake in YCS Dallas with this deck, I noticed a lot of times it really screwed up Dupe Frog, so I decided not to play Thunder King. But you just need like a monster to summon. Vermilio happened to be really good because of bottomless at 3 right now. And yeah, I love this card a lot. It honestly way overperformed. I thought it would be okay, but it turned out to be amazing. Another card that's maybe a little strange is Eater of Millions. So Traptrix Vermilio helps you when you're going first. Eater of Millions helps you when you're going second. You have about 7 cards in the extra deck that you'll probably never make in most games. So that gives you at least 5 targets that you can get rid of with this card. And yeah, this thing's really good. It's good in this deck for the same reason it's good in Trickstars. It's just good in decks that don't have a lot of spot removal. That like this deck can deal with like back row a lot because it has like the Dust Tornado card and has, I mean, Toad's like kind of big. It has like 2200, but it's not like really big, and a lot of times you just need something to kill over Astrograph, and this card does it really well, so I like this a lot. I would definitely play it going forward. Probably wouldn't play 3 copies though. You never. I know it's sort of like the meme from Farfus channels, like you play 2 ofs because you want to see them sometimes but not all the time. In this deck in particular though, you really can't afford to draw like multiples of any of these cards because you need all your cards to be live. And I kind of wanted to build a deck where almost every hand, like I said, every card is playable to some capacity. Now for the hand traps, I know everyone like hates seeing these cards. We played 3 Ash Blossom and 2 Ghost Ogre. I think these numbers were perfect. I never wanted to play, I mean, I wanted to play Effect Failure, like in theory, but in practice, Ghost Ogre is just a lot better because it hits the Heavy Metal Foes Electromite, and then they don't have the Link arrows. Because a lot of times I would Veilor the Electromite, and then they would just Pendulum Summon both the monsters that they used for it back to the field to make a second Electromite, and I'd still lose. Ghost Ogre, that doesn't happen with. Ash Blossom, it's in like a weird spot. It's not as good. I wouldn't call you crazy if you like didn't play hand traps. A lot of Magician players are cutting hand traps in particular, but it's just so effective sometimes when you get your opponent down to like a simplified game state and you just like have an Ash Blossom and you know that they can't do anything. So these cards, like some of the best hands of this deck were either Murmillo, Swap Frog, a Water Monster, and a Trap card, or they were just Swap Frog, a Water Monster, a Trap card, and a Hand Trap. Anytime that you can summon Toad with a real trap card and a hand trap, your opponent is in a really rough spot. So I like those guys a lot. Obviously, if you can't afford Ash Blossoms, you'll have to come up with something else. Veilor might be the best option. Droll, I don't know how expensive Droll is. I have no idea. But something else is probably possible if you want to stay on a budget. Although I think Ash Blossom's just like kind of irreplaceable, which is why it's so expensive. The only spells I played were Monster Reborn, Soul Charge, and Regeki. So Monster Reborn and Soul Charge are good. They're not insane. They're good because when you open Swap Frog and no water monsters, the Monster Reborn and Soul Charge are basically like extra water monsters because you can then just revive whatever you dump with Swap Frog and make Toad. They're not like going to do anything super unfair in this deck. Regeki is pretty good going second. I will say that, so I was kind of talking about at the beginning of this video, part of the reason I didn't do very good is because I'm just playing bad. And I will say that Soul Charge was one of the biggest cards that I kept misplaying. I even made a tweet about how I should just cut this card from my deck, so I stopped misplaying with it. Basically, just like briefly describe something that happens a lot. It's called Cabazal's theory. It basically refers to when you summon a big monster that doesn't have like a real threatening effect, and you just start poking for damage every turn, and your opponent refuses to kill the thing because they don't want to waste removal on a card that's not very good, and then you end up getting them to like 2,000 life points, and then by that point, it's like too late for them to do anything. That's something that I feel very strongly about, and that has won a lot of championships, especially back in like 2012, 2011. I think my problem was that I was rushing it. So basically, like one opportunity that I had to use Soul Charge in a good way was I discarded a Chaos Hunter for a Chaos Hunter against Trickstars. Now, a normal player, and even me looking back on it, should have just kept attacking with Chaos Hunter because that's Cabazal's theory. That's exactly what it is. And then after my opponent, like, I mean, they would have to deal with the Chaos Hunter sometime, and then if they dealt with it, I could Soul Charge back both Chaos Hunters. However, I was just thinking, oh, I just want to do like 5,000 damage every turn. So I simply, on my first turn, Soul Charge for the second Chaos Hunter, and then he Dark Hold, and then I had no monsters or recovery, and I lost that game. And that's one that was like very easily, looking back, like very easily fixable, which in reality, like most of my games were fixable when I thought about it later on. I just need to get better at thinking of it in the moment. So like I said, I think the deck is built fine. I'm just misplaying a lot, which is kind of tough. But anyway, moving on. So we have for the Paleozoics, which I don't really want to call this like a Frog Paleozoic deck because Paleozoics are pretty unimportant. This one's good, obviously, and this one's good, obviously. All the other ones are pretty terrible. Like, Marilla doesn't do anything. I mean, it's actually just like the worst card ever. The one that's like put like a burial from a different dimension is kind of cool. If it put back more than one card, it'd be really, really good. But only puts back the one card, which is like fine. But these are like the only good ones. I did play one Dinomischus. I cut this from 2 because I knew it was terrible, and then I still like regretted playing the 1. The only time this card is ever good is when you open Dupe Frog and Rodent Totem. So then you set the Dupe Frog and then had the Rodent Totem still in the hand. Other than that exact scenario where you've basically already lost because you opened not Swap Frog but 2 water monsters. Other than that scenario, this card's always awful. A lot of times in this deck, the only card left in your hand is a hand trap, and then obviously you just want to hit something with a hand trap. You don't want to discard it with this card. So I probably wouldn't play this again. It was terrible. I knew it was going to be terrible, but I still played it because it's so crazy, like cutting the Karma Cut from your deck, but it's actually just so badly positioned right now. You need cards that like 1-for-1 trade or gain you advantage, and that card's a straight -1, so it's pretty bad. So don't play that card. I played 3 Bottomless Trap Hole. I don't think I need to explain that too much. This card is absolutely insane. It hits almost anything in the Pendulum deck besides the Zero Scale and Harmonizing Magician. Other than that, though, it's obviously really powerful, and was the main reason that I played the Myrmilios, so there was pretty good. 3 Anti-Spell. If you open this, you will most likely win, not only in the Pendulum matchup, but just like matchups in general. Every deck has like Terraformings now and Field Spells. This card really slows that down. This card like instantly beats any deck that's playing the Spellbook engine, and like really slows down Desires. This card's just insane, so definitely should main deck it if you're playing this deck, although I think most people are. That's not really new information. 2 Mind Crush. This card was for evenly matched. That never came up once. I always just had the Toad, or I didn't even draw the Mind Crush. I only got evenly matched one time, so, well, one time that it resolved, and I didn't have the Mind Crush, so that didn't really matter. But this card's, like, cool. The most times that you're going to use this are when your opponent reveals Astrograph or adds Candina to their hand. In both those situations, Mind Crush just, like, blows them out, so it's pretty cool. It's also a normal trap card, so it triggers a Paleozoics. We now have the new Solemn Brigade, so 3 Solemn Strike, 1 Solemn Warning, 1 Solemn Judgment. Judgment is absolutely ridiculous. I don't think it's that good in every deck. I probably wouldn't play them like Pendulums or anything, but in this deck, it's just super dumb. And make sure all your plays go through, basically. And yeah, I would definitely play this card. It's kind of risky against Trickstars, but just in general, like, it's weird. Trickstars, these cards are really good against Trickstars as long as like it prevents them from setting up a board. I know that it seems kind of counterintuitive, but Trickstars really need to like attack to kill you, and they need to like trigger their effects and stuff. So if you can like strike one of their guys, or Judgment, like when they get down to no cards, like Judgmenting Scapegoat or Solemn Warning Scapegoat's really good. And then they just can't do anything because their deck is terrible. So anyway, that was the main deck. It was 40 cards. I keep playing like 42 card decks, but I finally just cut to 40 because I wanted to be as consistent as possible, which it was, so I guess it's pretty good. So the extra deck, we have 3 Toad, 2 Opabania, 1 of that guy, 4 cards that you're literally never going to summon: Sky Cavalry, Cat Shark, that Phantom Knights guy, and number 45. You always banish these 4, and then the Opabania with Eater, usually, or the Heavy Metal plus Electromite if it's not game 2 or 3. So these cards could have just... these cards should have been, these bottom 4, should have been other Ghost Reaper targets, like absolutely 100%. I never made any of them or wanted to make any of them the entire tournament. I should have known that because at the 2 regionals I went to and YCS Dallas, I never really made these cards. I would make these ones sometimes, and Sky Cavalry sometimes comes up too. But in the most cases, you're just going to summon Opabania and Toad. Toad's usually just like the go-to, but those cards are just there for Eater, I guess. We also played for the links 2 Mistar Boy, 1 Proxy Dragon, 1 Decode Talker, and then 1 Electromite, just for the cherries. We have more extra deck space than we do side deck space, so I was perfectly fine. It's not main decking this card, but it's like main extra decking this card. I don't know. I was perfectly fine not side decking this thing, because I needed all the side deck spots. And like I said, you should be playing not only this card, but probably like a Buster Dragon, Invoked Mechaba, all sorts of stuff, maybe even a Dante in your extra deck, just so you have more things to hit with cherries. And in that case, you maybe would feel comfortable even main decking cherries. It might be a little risky because if you face Trickstars, it's going to be pretty bad. Although in that case, hitting like the Proxy Dragon is pretty important for like the Scapegoat play. I don't know, probably shouldn't main cherries right now, but if you really wanted to dedicate a bunch of cards in your extra deck to cherries, I wouldn't call you crazy for main decking it, because when it resolves against certain decks, it's pretty darn good. We have 3 Chaos Hunter. This card is ridiculous. I actually want to play Lancia in addition to this card, not as a replacement to it. Yeah, it's so tough for Trickstars to get over this card. There's some like weird rulings with this card. I mentioned in the video that I posted yesterday. Basically, this prevents your opponent from activating cards that would banish cards. It does not prevent their cards from being banished. So that matters because when this thing's on the field, your opponent can't Eater Millions you, not only because they can't summon it, but they just can't banish your cards. They also can't Cosmic Cyclone you. I summoned this when my opponent had 2 Cosmic Cyclones face down. That absolutely won me that game. And also, when this card's face up, you can still use your own Eater of Millions on their cards, and you can also bottomless their cards. So that card's pretty unfair, pretty darn good. But probably should play Lancia in addition to it, just for the Invoked matchup. 3 Ghost Reaper, it was just in there for Metal Foes. In that regard, this card was pretty stupid. It won me a lot of games for sure. I haven't liked this card in the past, but for this event in particular, I liked it a lot. 1 Gamma Seal, this did absolutely nothing, never drew it, probably wouldn't play it. I think I was playing like, so I decided on the Ghost Reapers at the last minute. So like I had to cut some stuff, 3 cards. So I wanted to cut everything except the 1 Game of Seal, just in case I played against True Draco. I did play against True Draco. This card didn't do anything, and I just won naturally. So I guess it doesn't really matter. 2 Magical Spring. This card's good. I threw a game with this though. Most people aren't playing Time Pendulum Graph anymore, the trap card in Magicians, and my opponent was though. So I Magical Springed, and then he had Time Pendulum Graph, which meant that he could activate it, target his guy, target my guy. His guy's not destroyed, but my guy is destroyed, and then because one of the guys was sent to the graveyard, he gets to send a card from the field to the graveyard. So for 2 turns, he was able to kill 4 of my cards, and I lost the game because of that. So that's what I mean by like this card is good, unless you're stupid. So don't play this card against decks that are playing the trap card. Luckily, most of the Magician lists are not playing the trap card. And in those cases, this card's insane. But against the lists that are playing the trap card still, maybe if you go to like a regionals and people are kind of behind the curve, definitely don't play Magical Spring, because they'll take out like 100 of your cards. It's ridiculous. And you also can't. So the problem was that like when they're doing that, you can't even like hit it with the Dust Tornado card because their spells and traps can't be destroyed. It's super dumb. So I threw that game pretty hard. 2 Twin Disturb for background decks. I think that's pretty standard. 2 on any Nightmare. I didn't have room for 3. That's one of the things that I cut for a Ghost Reaper. This card's cool because when you go second against Pendulums, you can even slide this in because unlike Anti-Spell, which is really bad going second, this card can still rip apart their Pendulum Scales and put them in an awkward position. So I like that card a lot. A lot of times when I was going second, I sided out 2 Anti-Spell and put in 2 Unending Nightmare, and it was really good. Lastly, we have 2 Deep Dark Trap Hole. I thought this card would be really good against dinosaurs, and it was. It's really good for hitting Ultimate Conductor and El Shaddoll Winda. Both cards are pretty annoying, so you can just hit it with this. Sometimes you can use it on the Overtext just because to bait the effect or whatever, but generally you're trying to hit the Ultimate Conductor with this. There's only 1 Miscellaneous Source, and not even every dinosaur list is playing that card anymore, so usually this resolves, and when it resolves, it's pretty stupid, and you can search with Murmilio, so the trap holes are really good against dinosaurs, and I was kind of afraid of that matchup because Ultimate Conductor is pretty annoying to get over, and so I sided these. So when you play against dinosaurs, you can have 5 trap holes that kind of rip them apart, and it's pretty good. But anyway, that was my list. There are some things I'm going to change. I kind of mentioned a lot of them already. Like the extra deck can just have more Cherries targets. Mind Crush is kind of bad. The Dino Miscus is like really terrible. Regeki isn't like that impactful. I'm not even sure if you have to play 2 Murmilio. I sided 1 out a lot. But yeah, I think overall this deck was really solid. I just need to get better at the game. It's been like, it's weird. Like a couple years ago, I felt like I was bad at the game and bad at deck building, and now I'm like pretty good at deck building. Like this deck did fine. Even like the FA decks I've been playing, I've been doing fine. It's just like the technical play aspect is really hard for me sometimes, just because I don't really get any time to play test because I'm making the videos, which is like the ultimate first world problem complaint. I know, sorry about that. But yeah, thank you to everyone that came up to me at YCS Atlanta. If you're still watching this video, I don't know why. It's like a super in-depth Frog deck profile, but I will have a comprehensive YCS Atlanta video talking about not only the event, but also hitting 30K subs a couple weeks ago. And yeah, that'll be coming hopefully tomorrow. But anyway, I'll see you guys later. Bye.